Hello and welcome back to the Earth Medicine Podcast. I'm Laurel, your host, and we have the lucky privilege today of having the beautiful Michelle Nocon join us.
Thank you so
Welcome.
much. It's a privilege for me, truly.
Oh, beautiful. So, Michelle has an amazing bio. And in previous episodes, I always say that I don't want to make a practice of reading bios, but I think I'm going to stop saying that because I want to swim in hers and allow it time to land in your ears. She's amazing. Michelle Nocon is also known as the Stoic Herbalist, and she is a Bach Flower Remedy practitioner, a healer, and a modern mystic with a background in education, nature-based studies, esoteric sciences, and plant wisdom, very close to my heart. She works with sensitive people, helping them understand their emotional patterns, and uses Bach Flower Remedies responsibly and independently. So, welcome and thank you so much for being here.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yes. So, before you, I had never heard of Bach Flower Remedies ever. And after our first conversation, I was just left wanting to know more. So, I get to piggyback on that thirst for more here. So, if you could please introduce it to the audience listening.
Yeah, definitely. So Bach flower remedies are essentially essences of wildflowers with the purpose of helping us deal with difficult emotions, such as fear, maybe guilt, sudden sadness, anger, really anything you could really come up with. And they are made by very simply letting or picking the flowers, dropping them on a bowl of spring water and letting them sit on the top of the water. And then you allow 3 to 4 sun hours to just simply, you know, you let that process happen without any interference. So you let simply nature do whatever it is doing. And that process transfers the energetic patterns, the vibrational energy, if you will, of the flowers into the water. And so what you're left with is a water, spring water filled with the vibrational properties of the plant. So there's nothing physical there. If you would measure it, you wouldn't find any phytonutrients, there's no minerals. That's why people say, oh, this is some nonsense because there's nothing even there. True, physically, as at least as what we could measure, there is nothing really there physically. But vibrationally, oh gosh, it's full of potential. And so it's super safe to use because there's nothing physical there. There's no contraindications. You can use it with therapies and medicines, and there's really no limits to it. And the interesting thing is because it is vibrational in nature, it also works on our vibrational energy. So it doesn't work on the physical body, it works on our subtle body, which is the aura, the chakras. But you could almost say it's more in a like down to earth way, the thoughts, the emotions, the patterns that we have. And they were, I wouldn't say created because, well, nature created them, but the system was created in the 1930s by Dr. Edward Bach, who was a doctor, physician, he was a homeopath. And he saw that people were, having all sorts of feelings when they come to his clinic. And often they kind of shared the same feelings. And he noticed that people were, for instance, all feeling sad. They were all suffering from, it could be immune system issues. Or people who were all angry, they were suffering from, maybe something with the heart. And even if the symptoms were different, the underlying disease was very common. So the groups that shared common emotions had common underlying illnesses. And so it was like, quite interesting. And so he started to treat his patients on the basis of their character rather than the symptoms. Now, that's not what we do as practitioners. We really work with the emotions of people. But it's quite interesting that he found that link there. And so what they are gentle drops with the flower essences. There's a little bit of alcohol to preserve them, not to extract anything, just to preserve them. And you can buy them as little bottles like this in the stores, or you can make them yourself. That's free, flowers, sun, spring water are free. And either you put them in water or you make yourself a little treatment bottle with, you can mix these remedies together. And then you have your own really personalized, natural mix that helps you dealing with your difficult emotions. So, for instance, let's say you're very anxious of dogs. You would take Mimulus for known fears. Maybe you have a lack of self-confidence. You would take Larch for self-confidence. Maybe you're feeling really, really angry about something. You could take Holly for anger. And so you can take them more short-term-ish, or you could really take them for long-term patterns. And that's, I think, where the really true potential lies. That if you see that you have recurring things in your life and you're noticing that and you pair that to the right flower, which is very easy to do, you have a truly magical elixir.
So beautiful. And that's completely in alignment with everything I understand about quantum physics because we are quantum, we are particle and wave. And that wave is a frequency or a vibration that you're talking about. And the same way I think that plant medicine on the physical form works, which synthetic derivative of a plant constituent would be a patented drug
Mhm.
and our bodies know what to do with that chemical and our energy body knows what to do with the frequency, and that's the beauty of going to natural medicines because the synthetic drugs don't bring the wave form of healing. And that's really where I love this next question, that wave form of healing coming in the quantum physics. How does it not only heal the person but then you talk about how it ripples out and basically becomes a portal for their life to change. Could you talk more about that?
Oh, yeah. How long do you have here? So there's a few things that I want to tap into here. I would say that they are truly, they can be truly life-changing. There's first of all a ripple effect I would like to expand on. They can really change dynamics between people. They can work on timelines and they work in the quantum field. So not too bad for a little flower essence, I think. So to explain the ripple effect, I could go back to my personal story. So I grew up in a really chaotic household. Mom died early of breast cancer. Dad was an alcoholic, brother schizophrenic, into drugs and everything. Sister broke down. So when you live under these conditions, you really learn to, become invisible, not make things worse and just kind of stop existing. And you become very low maintenance, or you develop the skill of being a super people pleaser. So I was also always anticipating the worst to happen. And these things, they're not just feelings when you think about it, they really become you. They really become a state. So whatever you do in life, these things are always present. You make decisions from out that state. You choose work from that state. You have relationship based on that state. And that's not great. These are not the greatest choices that I made there. And so it really determines how you live. So my biggest problem that I had was that despite of everything terrible happening to everybody, there was also a sort of manipulation flowing through these stories. And I was really, really very kind-hearted, and like I said, such a people pleaser. But when you live like that, when you can't say no, when you don't have boundaries, when you let people treat you badly, you attract bad people. You attract people who want to treat you badly. You don't attract per se nice people who want to dominate you. They like to hang out with people that are easily dominated. The same with if you want to go for a job, but you're a people pleaser, well, you are the one who comes in early and stays the longest. And so there are so many things in life that are connected to these states that we have. And so you can imagine that I was always taking care of everybody. I had very little time for myself. I became very depressed. I also drank a lot. At some point, I was, really, I would say that I was, you know, so bad that I physically became ill. I had chronic tiredness. I couldn't work anymore. So financially, everything was going downhill. I was in very, really bad relationships. Everything was really going bad. And I didn't really ask myself these questions because looking at my family, that was just, I belonged to that group and I belonged to that kind of things that were happening to me seemed to be normal for my type of family. And when I understood that I needed to do something about that and that I could do something about that, started taking Bach Flower Remedies Centauri, which is for, the lack of boundaries. It was amazing. From someone who couldn't say no, I just gently started saying no now and then without feeling guilty. And then more and more. And the people who didn't like that, they just left. I didn't even have it just happened. And there was other people around me that were just nicer to me. And I started to feel better about myself, started to have more self-confidence, started to ask and started to have more energy to work again, started to, ask for promotion at my work. I started to say no when I didn't want to do things. And so that one little flower that helped me say no a little bit more, that rippled through my whole life. The difference in who I was and who I am now and who I am becoming. I mean, I can't even explain it. I don't even think that I would still be there if it wasn't without these flowers. And so that's just one example of one little flower. So that's like, and there's so many examples of my clients, of my students that are just as mind blowing as that. The other thing that I want to say is the changing dynamic. So, well, obviously in my family that happened, but a good example is from one of my clients. She's a very like really hardworking type, very perfectionist, never gives up, takes care of everybody. But she was completely depleted. And she was decluttering her house at some point, and she said, I'm so tired of always being the one who has to, pull everything together. I organize everything, I have to do everything. And even though my husband, he does it, but I need to ask it 100,000 times. I need to initiate it. I'm so tired. And so I worked with her. We took Bach flowers like oak for being really dutiful, being very, never taking the time to rest, just working out of duty, never giving up. We worked with rock water, which is literally rock water. So that's the only remedy that's not made from flowers. And this is for being really rigid and perfectionist. So we gave that and vervain. And vervain is for people who are really idealistic and they kind of they want to have a little bit of control coming from that idealistic viewpoint of, oh, if you just do it like this, that would be better for everyone. But they can become really intense for themselves and for others. And after a few weeks, I had a conversation with her, and this was the family dynamic since ever. These people were married for 40 years. And she
Oh,
said, yeah. So after 40 years, she said to me, I managed to kind of stand back a little bit. I didn't really care a lot anymore about, oh, the house and we need to tidy it and it needs to be done like this way. You're just taking a little bit more of a kind of, it's okay, it's cool. And because she took that kind of more chill position here, her husband actually was the one initiating now, like, hey, shall we do this? And she said, this is unbelievable. Like, my life is just so much lighter. So, changing dynamics, things that you think they are how they are, absolutely possible to, there are solutions there that you wouldn't even think of. Timelines is another good one. So impatience is the remedy, the Bach Flower remedy for impatience. When you're at the store and you're waiting to pay and it takes forever and you're like, why is it always me who has to wait here so long? And you're just so irritated. And if you have that sometimes, that's fine. But if you live like that, it can be really painful. There's so much inner tension. You're super hurried all the time. You're agitated. You make a lot of mistakes because you want to get things done fast. And I used to be a lot like that as well, and almost made accidents and stuff like that. But what really happens in the impatient state, let's say, is that you are so rushed, you are on another timeline than everybody else. And so at some point, I was driving, things weren't going fast enough, and everybody was doing their little thing, and I was just sitting like, come on, drive. And I saw something coming and I anticipated a situation that of course nobody had seen because I was ahead. But because I was in my own timeline, but the other people were in together in their timeline, I almost was the one in the end who made the crash because I was anticipating something that might have happened but didn't happen because I was on timeline X and they were on timeline Z. So I almost created the accident in the end because I didn't share their timeline. I was on my own timeline. And so when you are very impatient, you follow the timeline of the head. You're in your head. It's about thinking, doing things as fast as possible. But the timeline of nature has a much bigger wisdom, a much deeper wisdom than we have. That's the timeline of the heart. You know, the heart has a rhythm. You know, you can't really control it. I mean, unless you're what is the name? The name of the guy who's always in the water, you know, with the ice, Wim Hofman, you know. But in general, you can't really control your heartbeat. It has a rhythm. Nature has a rhythm. So what basically happens is that impatience brings you back in your body, so you can follow nature's rhythm. It brings you back into sync. And the last thing is indeed the quantum field. So Bach flower remedies are little drops of flower remedies, but they're not just, it's like the flower's essence. So let's say I'm gonna extract my essence. My essence wouldn't be Michelle here today at, you know, whatever time it is in this room. It would be me and everything I've done in my life and everything I was and everything I will be for the rest of my life. And further, and it also is everything that my ancestors were and were doing and will be and were and everything. Like the, you know, it's tapping into that collective ancestral vibrational knowledge. And so when you're taking the vibrational essence of a plant, you're not just taking the vibrational essence of that specific plant on that specific spot with its speciality. You're really tapping into the ancestral knowledge of that plant. And our plants are far older than we are, so you can imagine what they've seen: ice times, volcanic times, war, famine. I mean, it's unbelievable. The trees, they were like nicely quiet in a forest, and then someone decides to build a city. And, you know, as a tree, you're there like, what the, you know, what is going on? You have to adapt, change, adapt your chemical constitution. So they had to deal with all these intense, amazing changes. And that incredible knowledge is just available to us for free in nature. And that is why they are so profound. They have such immense wisdom. It's truly unspeakable.
What you just said resonated in every cell in my body. And I'm not sure if I shared this with you when we spoke last. It may have happened just after we spoke. I was sitting for the very first time with frankincense meditating, and I found a ceremonial grade frankincense and I had ingested it. And in the 17 years of working with essential oils, I've never ingested one. It never occurred to me. And I ingested this one because it is ceremonial grade. And I was sitting under my pine tree and I was able to very quickly fall into a, it almost felt like an electromagnetic space that inhabited maybe 9 to 10 inches outside of my body. And I could feel, and a lot of it had to do with being able to smell it so strongly. I could feel into the energy of frankincense and I could feel something shift. And I have not been too far away from the experience yet to notice if any triggers have fallen away or changes have occurred in my personality. I just feel a little healed, maybe might be the word to use there, in a way that I don't know what it is. So everything that you are saying is so spot on to my experience. And I feel like maybe that's tapping into what shamans are doing when they channel plant spirit medicine to heal patients. I think that the ceremonial grade frankincense gave me a glimpse into my body being able to memorize the path into that modality. And, I want to link any remedies that you want below, but I can totally link the frankincense
Mhm.
ceremonial grade for anybody that's interested in meditating with it too. So, yes. And
Definitely.
you talk about this working at the soul level. And I hope I don't catch you off guard, but I'd really love to know what you consider to be the soul and how this works on the soul level.
That is a good question. And well, there's of course some theories. You know, Steiner has theories about that, but which I follow a lot. But I often think that we simply don't really have the language, neither the concept to really understand it. But I would say how I see it, I would almost say that it is the universal creative mind that has granted me the expression of not just me here as Michelle in this lifetime, but it has granted me sort of a almost like the sun who gives you a ray, you know? And it's like you are that ray, and you know, you have a path to go. One of these paths is this little life. And so you're part of the sun. You can't be without it, but you're not the sun. You know what I mean? You are the sun, but you're not really. So I think the soul can somehow be understood in that way, that you are in a way as powerful. You are also a creator, but you come from the thing that is, I wouldn't say above you, that's not really the right term. I just think that there is a sort of the creator is not me, but I come from it and I am it. But I can't really independently do anything that wasn't already there. Everything already was there. I am just here to experience certain things, and I have a sort of a choice for like what am I gonna do here as Michelle, and what is my soul gonna do afterwards. So I would say that it's the individual expression of the higher energy, because there is really, in my opinion, nothing outside of that. It's unchangeable, it's unmovable, it has no beginning, it has no end, it cannot be corrected, it cannot be changed, cannot morph into something else. So it's very difficult to understand that, and yet we are a part of that somehow. So I don't know if that made any sense, but that's how I feel about it somehow.
One of the more relatable answers I've ever heard about the soul. I feel this very same way. That really
That's nice.
sounds
Yeah.
true. Yeah, incredible. So there's something else that you shared with me that I had never heard of, which I'm loving. I just learned from you. It's so amazing. So you also work with something called Doctrine of Signatures.
Mhm.
So please explain what that is and then how it ties in with Bach Flower Remedies.
So the doctrine of signatures is quite an old, let's say, herbal philosophical concept. I think it stems from the 16th century with Paracelsus, which was a guy who was fully into magic and all that stuff. Really very interesting. And it actually poses that the physical appearance of a plant tells us what it does, or maybe how it grows, where it grows, when it grows. And so, well, found that quite intriguing. In fact, I found it so intriguing that I believe that this is really, really true. I've also studied the temperament, so I really can look at someone's face and tell what kind of person that is by, you know, looking at how nature works. This person has a lot of lines, a lot of rings, like earth, very structured. So I do that all the time, and I think that's really such a valuable thing to let nature be the teacher, and nature really shows you how it's really as above, so below somehow. And so I can give you a few examples of where you see that really clearly. So for instance, walnut. You eat walnut, I mean, it's super good for the brains. It literally looks like a brain. You can't, I mean, it can't really look more than a brain than that. You have things like lungwort. It's a plant that looks, you know, has the looks a little bit like lungs, good for the lungs. Eyebright literally looks like eyes with eyelashes, good for the eyes. And also in kidney beans, you know, our ancestors knew all this. They knew this. And so you have something like, you know, for instance, impatience is a good one. This is one of the first remedies Bach actually discovered in that way. And he did that by looking at the plant, how it was growing. So this was one of the ways he discovered plants, by simply observing them. And for impatience, which is for impatience, he saw that that plant just nothing happened. There is no growth. And then suddenly out of nowhere, the thing just goes sky high, makes branches super rigid, no, there is no time for anything else, just grows and grows and grows. So it has that kind of speedy growth in it, like exaggeratedly fast suddenly. And then what it also has is seed pods that really pop open, better said, pop open super, like if you just touch it a little bit, it just explodes and it lets all the seeds fly everywhere. So it really has the properties of irritability and speed. And so this is one of the main ways that Bach really, found this, what these flowers are doing. Of course, he tested it on himself and on his patients. Just to give you another example, for instance, rock water. Rock water is the remedy for rigid thinking, being extremely perfectionist. If, for instance, I'm on a diet and I'm just eating that, and it's like, oh, come on, it's your birthday. No, or like, okay, your work is good. No, it's not good enough. I'm still gonna work. It's not perfect. So very rigid, very tough people deny themselves any pleasure. And what does rock water do? What does water do when you see it flow? It flows. It's not rigid. There's no rigidity at all in rock water. And still it moves forward. It goes downhill. It goes, in little caves. There's plants, there's stones, there's obstacles everywhere. It can't just flow down. It needs to take turns. It needs to change direction. It has a whole ecosystem. And yet, the only thing it does really is flow. So another interesting one, holly. Holly is for, no, I'm gonna first explain how it looks like and then keep the surprise. Holly has, this, that's how I am, always teasing. Holly has these really sharp protective leaves. It has red berries, they're very like, okay, danger, danger. They're mildly poisonous as well. And holly is for hate, rage, anger. Makes sense. Everything in nature makes sense. Another one, clematis. Clematis is, I think it's also known as old man's beard. It's kind of, it's an airy plant. It climbs uphill. It's kind of drifts all over the place. It's not very grounded. It's not down to earth at all. It makes these wispy seed tails that looks kind of ghostly. It's for people who are not here on earth. They are always, they're not fully in the body. They're very ethereal artists, always dreamy. Like it's unbelievable how you can just look at the plants, look at nature, and learn just so much of that. So yes, the doctrine of signatures is definitely something that I am very interested in.
Do you have an example of that, but where it grows, meaning above ground or below ground, for example? Is
Yeah,
there, does that have any weight here?
absolutely. Yeah. So not per se in the Bach flower remedies, but I would say in the essences. So I would say that Bach flower remedies are made from flowers, and flowers are really they're above ground. They're they're very clear in full daylight. They grow in the sun. They are really almost the signature of a plant. If you see a plant from far, you see the leaves, you see the flowers, you know exactly what it is. It's almost the signature of the plant in the way that you immediately recognize. It's so easy to recognize a plant by its flower. And so when you're working on emotions and on your patterns, even if they're not always immediately aware, you're not maybe always immediately aware of them, they are in they're in daylight. You kind of know how you are. You know if you're fearful, you know if you're a bit of, dominant, you know if you are impatient. So everything that is in daylight that you're conscious of is what we work on with Bach flower remedies. Now, if you would look at what is growing underground, we would come to the world of the mushrooms. And so mushrooms, even if we see them above ground, they are they are just, the fruit of the mushroom. The mushroom mycelium that grows underground is like super big. It can be kilometers, while the little mushrooms are most of the time, well, pretty small compared to the mycelium. And they're also, if you just think about it, a tiny brief expression of an organism that lives underground all year. And so that's interesting when you think about it, because the Bach flower remedies, the flowers that grow in full light and that are working on conscious experiences, thoughts, feelings, patterns, while the mushrooms are working on the unconscious level, what is underground, what is not known, what is unseen. It's almost also as if the Bach flower remedies are working with that kind of, feeling better, having more balance. While when you look at what mushroom remedies do, they're working a lot on unconscious things, and there's a lot of decomposing, there's letting things die off. It's pointing out the things that make you sick. So it really has in a way, a darker tint to it. So again, Doctrine of Signatures, really.
That's amazing. What about a tree resin? It's inside of a tree, but
Hmm.
it's above ground. Do you have any thoughts on a tree resin?
That's a good one. That's a good one. We use for Bach flowers, there is some trees, but there is not really a specific, they're still made from flowers and stuff like that. But from resin, or resin, better said, I couldn't really give you an answer to that. But I'm really now, I really am interested to find out what that would mean. Because you are working with something still that is above ground. On the other hand, it's deeply hidden and it comes out when bruised, when wounded. So there has to be something, yeah, there has to be a connection there. But I can't say for sure, but I would say that how I would probably look at, or better said, what I would probably try to research and try to test is what is the connection with something that is hidden and comes out after being bruised, because there is something going on after something painful happens to you. This is the moment when most of us learn the very painful lessons. And so I wouldn't be surprised if you could make some kind of essence of tree resins, and if they maybe somehow work on, here's my little cat, what happens when you're wounded and you become conscious of something releases, and then what do you do with that? So I wouldn't be surprised if there is a connection there. But yeah, the thing is, investigating things like that or researching things like that could be a fast process, but it could also take years, because it's very difficult to test it. You have to test it on yourself or on people that are extremely self-conscious. So yeah, but I'm on a mission now.
I love it. So I have two favorite resins, myrrh and frankincense, and I've
Hmm.
just been introduced to
Hmm.
copaiba. I'm not sure how to say it. Cobaiba, I think.
Oh, I mean, my English, I trust you.
And it makes sense that my first experience like I had was with frankincense because of what you just said, because I've been working on healing social wounds and visibility.
Hmm.
So it makes a
Yeah.
lot of sense. And I'll have to go sit. And I love that we get these opportunities for our bodies to memorize states of being, the
Hmm.
same as breadcrumbs on a trail, so you can find your way home, find your way back. I love how our physical bodies are engineered to, as we discover and move forward, we learn that path and we can expand into it and then retract back
Hmm.
and incorporate what we learned, and then we can expand back. So now that I've had the one experience moving 10 inches in or out or in, I'm going to go sit back and see what's in that space.
And
Wow.
it's also interesting because I really believe that the plants themselves, that they really work on the quantum field, so they are already trying to come in your consciousness. So whatever way it is, I often say to people, what plants do you have on your way to work? What plants are growing in your garden? Because often these are the plants that you are attracted to very often are the plants that want to add something to who you are. And the plants that repel you are also an indicator often that there's something you don't want to see or you have a little bit too much of. So
Mm,
it's very wise, in fact, to just be guided by your own taste, by what you feel like you are attracted to. Absolutely.
mm. I love that. One of the ways that I chose the woman that I've um, mentored myself with is we had the same flower or the same plants growing in our yards, and she's in Australia, but we both had the same plants, and that felt like a sign. And I don't even know if I think I did verbalize it to her, and I know that she is of a like mind like you and and I do remember us pausing on that point, but I feel I'm on the right path. One of those reasons is because we attract the same plants. And the plants we didn't plant. That's the interesting thing. I have parsley that is volunteered all over my yard. And rosemary I did intentionally plant. I have an affinity for rosemary.
Oh, me too. I swear it. I love rosemary. It's amazing. But you know, this too, I mean, this just makes me I just want to laugh. Like this is how intuitive people make decisions. Like what plants are growing in your garden, you know, not like, oh, what is a good business model or, you know, like you kind of just there's just things flowing and you are going with that flow, you know, and that is a really, really special gift to have, to trust that kind of um intuitive decision making.
Yes, agreed. So I am very curious. You are known as the Stoic Herbalist.
Hmm.
Why Stoicism?
Hmm. Yeah, so I was always attracted by, you know, all these virtues, you know, the courage and wisdom and discernment, understanding that you're gonna die very soon, so don't waste your time by being upset on other people on Facebook and stuff like that. I just thought it was so valuable. And you know, with everything I've been going through, I could have just sat sulking in a room and I had all the rights to do that. Life was really miserable. But I also really had the feeling that despite that all of these things were happening to me, that I had somehow a sense of control here. I didn't understand it, didn't know how or what. And the Stoics, they also have something with control. You know, they always say, accept what happens, what you can change, and work on what you can change. Do your best. And that in itself, all these virtues in itself, I mean, self-awareness, personal development, alignment with nature, moral development, all of that is the work I'm doing with Bach Flower Remedies. All of that is what the remedies demand from you, or that they make you better at all that. So that's one thing. There's also another thing that is interesting, I think, when it comes to control, you know. That is really a big one. Also, when I look, for instance, at my clients, at my own life, that really thin rope you have to walk when you're, you know, you have things going on in your life, and at the same time, you have maybe kids or a husband or parents that are in trouble and you want to help them. And you're kind of balancing the two, and you're like, do I help or I can't anymore myself? And there is a sense of trying to do good for yourself, trying to do good for others, but it's always a balance of resistance. There's a little bit of control, and I really learned the hard way that sometimes you have to let go of control, even when you love people. And so that was one of the big lessons I had in life. Just to give you an example, so my brother was also an alcoholic, and you know, he's making sure that his paperwork was in order and making sure that everything was arranged for him and that he had food and the whole, you know, whatever. And at some point, I invited him to my house, and you know, I just turned my back and I look back and I see the bottle of alcohol wobbling, you know, and I was like, "Fucking hell!" You know what? I say, "You're right. You're a grown-up adult. Drink. If you want to drink, you're right. You know, who am I really to tell you that you shouldn't drink?" And of course, I said that because I was very upset. But it was, while I was saying it, I felt that it was really freeing actually to say that. So I noticed something resonating in me. And bear in mind, at that time, I drank a lot too. And I said, you were actually right. Drink if you want to drink. But for me, it hurts me to see you like that. So if you drink, I'm not going to invite you anymore to my place. So you are free to come. If you keep doing this behavior, then please don't come anymore because it hurts me. And so that was a little bit tough, but when that happened, he actually changed his life. So years and years and years, you are doing everything you can. You're like pushing your own life aside to help others. And then when you say, now this is your responsibility, and you let go of the control, it's just so important to, because everything is really about resistance. Fear is about resistance. Wanting to be loved is about resistance. There is so much resistance and control, and half of the time, the only thing we really need to do is letting go of the control, soften, and not have more control and be more rigid. But darn, is that hard? And so you also understand then, and this is of course not always the case. Bad things can happen when you let go of people and you say, hey, now I don't hold your hand anymore. And you do that out of love, of course. But when you hold others too much, they don't have the opportunity to make their own mistakes. They don't have the opportunity that life takes them and says, hey, now I'm going to push you a little bit more in that direction because you are grabbing them and you are forcing them in a certain way. So that's where, for me, the Stoicism is just really interesting. And another thing I would like to point, because I was always really interested in magic, all forms of magic. Magic, not like David Copperfield, like magic. And when you think about it, Stoicism is really about inner alignment rather than outside manipulations. Again, understanding that things beyond your control will happen. Just prepare yourself, do your best, but align yourself really and have courage and go forward. And let's say, generally speaking, there's two forms of magic. One is called low magic, and one isn't better than the other. This without judgment. They're just called low magic and high magic. Low magic is really about manipulating your external world. Maybe you want to protect your home. Maybe you want to have more influence or have more money, and you're gonna do some rituals to, let's say, make something more likely for you to happen. It's not like you're gonna, I suddenly want to have a rabbit here on my lap. Of course, that won't happen, but you're making things more likely to happen in the way that you want it. High magic is almost the opposite. It's when you kind of, it's almost a quest. It's more a quest for spiritual ascent, like knowing what you have to do and directing your spiritual energy towards that, the union with the divine. Things like conscious transformation. Again, this is exactly what I aim for in Bach Flower Remedies. Not just feeling better, having less anxiety, but really becoming not less you, more you. Really doing what you're supposed to do here, fulfilling that task. And so that's quite interesting because you would say that Stoicism and magic, like they sound like two opposites. The one is about, putting a hat on and waving a wand and emotions, and the other one is the opposite of that. But if you think about it, being alignment with nature, moral development, spiritual development, virtue, courage, this is really all you need to fulfill that purpose here. So for me, it's just, I see such an amazing correlation there. And it maybe makes no sense for someone else, but for me it's like, oh yeah, like this to me it's high magic, it's Stoicism, like it's the same thing. It just, one are like people with ropes and one are people with white ropes and big beards. But for me it's really quasi the same thing. And so Stoicism has helped me immensely through my life, through enduring the suffering. You are gonna get some slaps in the face and you better be prepared for it. And then, stand up, brush it off and continue. But also don't repress your emotions, because people often think Stoicism is about repressing your emotions. That's not the case at all. It's about mastering your emotions, feeling them, sitting with them, accepting them, doing something with them. So that's my little Stoic journey here.
It's right in alignment with the law of opposites. That if you go deeply into something, you find the opposite, and that the opposites are actually the same thing. They're just two sides of the same energy,
Amazing. I
just a
didn't
high
even think
frequency and
about
a low.
that.
Yes, so I'm amazed by your level of intuitiveness. I mean, you are something to behold. You have a beautiful way of explaining things in a very digestible form, and you take very esoteric examples and you bring it down to the practical. I love the way that you teach. I love learning from you. You make so much sense, and you found it all through your inner work, which is just even more incredible that you intuitively found your way into this knowledge. It's just beautiful. Thank you. I'm so happy you crossed my path.
Gosh, I'm gonna blush here. I really feel warm. So sweet. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Well, is there anything that you want to share with the audience that we haven't covered? And I know that we covered a lot of stuff and we could always have another podcast in the future, but do
Mhm.
you feel complete or is there anything else?
Oh gosh, I mean, I have so much to say, but I think this is already quite a lot of information for people to digest. I would just want to say that um, there's no there's no reason not to try Bach Flower Remedies. Doesn't have to be with me or through me. I mean, you can make them yourself for free. You can buy them. They are generally not very expensive. They are affordable for most people. They are safe. They are incredibly powerful. They can help you with really simple fears and problems that you have. But if you allow yourself to walk with them, they will walk with you through any door. They will be at your side at any terrible happening in your life. If you want to use them for self-development, they are there. If you want to use them to heal trauma, they will be there. They will be sometimes the only single thing that is holding you. And so I just have so much reference for nature and for these flowers, and I just hope that I gave a little bit of that spark here to all of you. And I would just say, be yourself. Be yourself. You have, I mean, your soul has many shots, but you here, you have one shot, and you are gonna die. So be yourself. It's gonna happen. Don't be scared. You're gonna make it. It will happen by itself. So and love yourself because there's a lot of issues around loving yourself. Almost all of the things in the Bach flower world are, if you take them back to the what is really happening, it's not loving the self. And
Mm.
so that seems to be a very difficult thing for us human beings here on Earth. Love yourself. That's what you need to do here. Be yourself, love yourself. Don't do the worst you can. Do your best. And yeah, that's what I wanted to say.
Well, if somebody wants to work with you, what would that look like? Do you teach classes? Do you take people on one-on-one? And what can we link below for people to be able to engage with you that way?
Yeah, I do consultations, so I have a website where you can contact me or make an appointment. I also have a free school community. It's free for now, at least for a short time. If you join now, you have free access for life. We'll do some live sessions there. And it's really cool to hang out with us, and everybody's learning and we're all sharing, and it's just so beautiful. And I'm not even a community person, so that says something. And like I'm a little bit of a loner me, but I love it. Like it's such a nice community. And I also have a class called Bloom into Balance where you can learn to work with Bach Flower Remedies to heal yourself. So it's not a practitioner's class, it's not an informative class. It is a class where you learn about Bach Flower Remedies and how to use them to heal your emotions and to heal your life. And I think it's the only class in the world that's doing that. So I'm a little bit proud. So if you feel called for that, you're really, really very welcome. It's self-paced, there is support, there's live sessions, and yeah, I'm there for you. So if you feel called, you can find all the links.
Beautiful. And then what about individual products? Do you create essences that you have to offer to people if they don't want to make them
Mhm.
themselves?
I am doing that. It's just a little bit difficult here with the law because, the law, and also with sanding, because the sanding costs here are insane. So most of the time, I just recommend people to buy them somewhere else because I mean, I'm happy to send them because I make personal blends for people here around, of course. but ascending colors are a little bit difficult. However, I have sort of a very, very mini small brand, but I'm not really fully in production yet, but I am working on it. So sky's the limit.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining. And thank you, audience, for listening and being here and being in this space with us and learning about these topics.
Thank you so much. This was such a great match. I immediately fell in love with your channel and with your beautiful personality. You have such a beautiful, beautiful vibe. You're a great person. You really are a great person. And so I'm so grateful to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.